Firstly, thank you all very much for coming today. I would like first to thank, of course, CCG to first hosting us here, but also very much to agree to make this presentation today that seems to attract a lot of attention, as we have so many different people from many industries coming together, and of course our long-term partners on event, the Benelux Chamber of Commerce and all their members. Thank you very much, Chloe. Thank you very much, Mr. Wang. Myself, I represent the Swiss Chamber of Commerce. Some of you might know me. I think it's one of the first time around this table. I don't know so many people. So thank you all very much again to trust us, to join us. I don't want to talk too much. Today is a chance to exchange and to ask questions. Dr. Wang will make a presentation, but he will try to make it interactive, and when the interactive is finished, we have a time to ask questions. Please ask your question. Do not be shy. And we will, of course, make the Chatman house rule. That means what is said in this room stays in this room. However, if I'm right, during his presentation will be recorded, but after the discussion that we will have will not be recorded. Okay? So if you have sensitive question, wait after the presentation. Thank you very much. And now, please welcome Dr. Wang on the floor.
So thank you, Gulam, and also good afternoon for all the friends from Swiss Chamber and of course CCG as well. So I'm very pleased to be attending this exchange section this afternoon. Basically, I just went to the CGTN yesterday afternoon for the whole afternoon. I was there commenting on the closing of the NPC annual section for the global audience. So basically, what I actually think what we can do this afternoon is basically I'll give probably 15-20 minutes of a briefing from my understanding what's actually happened or what am I take away from these two sections. But then and after that I hope that we can do some roundtable discussion and exchanges and communication. So basically, we are very happy to co-host this with Swiss Chamber and also our Benelux Chamber as well, which is Ms. Song was representing as well. I think probably just briefly introduce Center for China Globalization. Center for China Globalization is one of the leading think tanks in China and one of the top 100 think tanks that ranked by University of Pennsylvania think tank program for many years. And we are also the only think tank that has the special consultant status granted by the UN for the think tank category. So we are very happy that we're active. And then we are also engaged with business community. I understand this afternoon we have so many business representatives from different companies, chambers. So we're happy to welcome all of you to attend this CCG roundtable here. Also, what I like to say is that actually the two sections was finished yesterday, but I think now it's time to digest. It's time to really find out what's really the takeaway. And actually CCG is having another one, which we normally do. We have a CCG VIP luncheon going to be held at the International Club this Friday. And we have 30-40 ambassadors already registered. So we have another brief section there with some experts, CPPCC and NPC members attending as well. What I would like to say for this year section, two sections of NPC and CPPC section, I think this year is quite significant. The reason for that is first, it's probably one of the best NPC and CPP section that was held after COVID, because it's actually shortened the time, 8 days, but is also well prepared. I think that about a week or 10 days before that, President Xi met private sectors leaders, business tycoons like Jack Ma, like Lei Jun, and also companies from BYD and DeepSeek were all met President Xi and top Chinese leaders. So I think that is really a big signal. So I found the mood of this year's conference was quite positive, quite encouraging. And furthermore, I think the other thing maybe I found is quite different is because of the whole world has been changing rapidly. We had a big, many countries had an election last year, and then we had President Trump getting the power about 40 days something, only 1 month, 10 days after that, and we see so much changes happening. I was just returning from a Munich Security Conference last month, and then I was in the audience when J.D. Vance was criticizing European and saying China is not a threat, Russia is not a threat. You guys, Europeans, are really losing values and losing the freedom of speech, and losing a lot of traditional Western values. So they are the threats. So it's interesting to see the whole world is really changing so fast, and there's uncertainty with Trump launching this trade war, not just against China. I mean, he only raised 20% on China this term. Of course, there's another 25% in the first term, but he's having another 25% for Canada, Mexico, and also 25% on the steel, aluminum across the board, and then even more on EU countries. So there's a whole world of uncertainty, and also we see the financial market reflecting that. You have the New York Stock Exchange was tumbling for a few days also. But what I see now, China is become a stabilizer. Basically, this year, that's why this new conference was so noticeable. As a matter of fact, I noticed that this year they had over 3,000 journalists from China on the board participating in these two sections, and then just international journalists from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, and many international, over 1,000. So it's probably the recent record, I would say. And so this year's conference is really highly noticeable. But while this amidst this uncertainty, people are wondering what China going to say, what China going to do, what are the progress that we're going to see from China. So I think this time there is quite a lot of assurance that has been people getting from these two sections. And also, what's more is China still announced that they achieved the 5% last year, and for the new year it continued to be 5%, 2025. So this is that's in general. And then from what I can see is that, for example, in 2024, the 10 big provinces has contributed over 60% of Chinese GDP. So you can see many major provinces like Guangdong, Jiangsu, Shandong, maybe Sichuan, or all those Zhejiang, it still kept it continued to be 5%. So I think this is good. But also I think people. I was at CGT studio live coverage yesterday. People. The journalist was asking, the anchor was asking, what's my, why is this two sections so important? I told, I was speaking there, I was saying that the two sections is a regular exercise that China needs. After 1 month of lunar New Year celebrations, and then people start fresh in the spring, and then which means the spring is coming, and China is fully in business again. So this is important that China is in business. And I think there's two sections really announced to the world. China is back in business after a long, slow the Chinese New Year. So we can expect probably March, April, May, and even for the whole year, this is the time to set the tune, set the target, and build up the consensus. So this is consensus building also is very important, because people are wondering, what about domestic consumptions? What about domestic stimulus packages? What are the government policies, central, local, at the grassroots level? What are the ways to go? So this is really important that these two sections build up this consensus and important. So you can see this is a regular exercise. I was calculating. There is 3,000 NPC members and 2,000 CPPCC members. About 5,000 of them all gathered here in Beijing at the national level. That's probably the largest political meeting in the world that anywhere you can see. And then on top of that, I was a Beijing CPPCC member for many years, and I was a state councillor for the state council. So you can see that this kind of exercise not only practiced at the central level, but also at the provincial level, at the municipality level, at the county level. So you have 4 layers of NPC, CPPCC members. If for example, in Beijing, you have another 700, 800 CPPCC member, and have another maybe 1,000 or something NPC member. So that another 1,500, 2,000 just for one city like Beijing. But if you multiply that for 31 provinces and municipalities, that could be a large number. And then you multiply that again at the municipality level. This is provincial level I was talking about. Then there's municipality level. There's over actually 26 cities in China have a population above 1 million. And then you have 2,500 something like counties. They all have this system, members of CPPCC, NPC members. So adds up, could be 1 million. It's enormous consensus building process. So people are talking about what are the characteristics of China. This is really important. Characteristic of China is that they really gather all the elites, members and officials. Of course, for example, 5,000 people attending the NPC, CPPCC meetings does not include the government officials. I mean, also, I was a state council of a state council. I was also sitting every year for those two sections. So if you're counting those people, could it be 10,000 or 8,000 people attending those meetings? So that's a huge consensus building process. And then rally the morale and unify the actions, and clear up debate, deliberate the Premier's working report and the legal, all the legal things. And the thing that I think good about that is, for example, NPC has proposed 269 legal proposals, and deputy recommendations is over 8,000 received, from 3,000 delegates. And then for the CPPCC member, they have 5,890 proposals. I know how this works because, for example, you write a CPPCC member a proposal. It has to be a proposal submitted during the conference day. And then you have to be specific on an issue towards which government, what process, what are your recommendations. For example, when I was a Beijing CPPCC member, I wrote quite a few, and then they actually responding to you. So you at the national level, the ministry will responding to you. So any CPPCC member, when they write a recommendation proposal, the government has to respond, whether it's education or tourism or talent or whatever. So that's very interesting. So it's a really a good exercise to go through, and that's probably called I think they call it the whole process, democracy process. But I think this is also a consultative democracy as well. But more so, it's a meritocracy in the making as well, because you see every year there's 60 million students took took the exam, go to the college. 13 of them admitted through the examination paper voting, and then you have 3 million college graduates apply for 200,000 government jobs, again through examination paper voting, getting into the system, and then you start from grassroots to promote to the county, municipality, province, even central government, through the performance. So this is a unique system in China, practiced thousands of years, and so I think this is why China works pretty, organically every year, every 5 years after another 5 years, a 5 years plan. So this year is the year of conclusion of the 14th 5 years plan, and then set a target for the next 5 years plan. So this is a really interesting exercise, and I think this is very unique. So wasn't really talked a lot about this process. I think we see also other countries have their style of democracy, but China has certain other style of its own democracy. I think this kind of exercise is quite unique and quite productive, basically. So it's really don't have a lot of debate and no action. Here is really to build up the consensus. I really see this as a consensus building. Yesterday in the CGT, they mentioned about stability. Also project stability. So people will see what's happening. They got more confidence on the entrepreneur, multinational, have more understanding, and then, all those things. So it's really, I found this very, very interesting. I think specifically, basically, I see for Mr. Wang Yi also give a talk on the big news conference. So China will continue to inject stability to the world in terms of continue to build this GDP of 5% for 2025. And also, according to the calculation by the Bloomberg, based on the latest International Monetary Fund forecast, China will be the largest contributor to the global economy growth over the next 5 years, and amounting to 25% share of this GDP growth, and exceeding G7 countries combined. And this is Bloomberg calculated on the IMF numbers. I was also at the World Bank event yesterday. They were talking about IMF and financing and prosperity. Yesterday they had an event there. And so you see China actually will have more of those kind of, continuous stability, contributing to global GDP growth. And also, the growth area. One of the interesting areas that people was also talking about ask about new quality productive forces, and people really don't know what's when this term was invented last year, people really don't know what does it mean. So I said this year, what mean by new productive forces? DeepSeek is the new quality productive forces. For example, I was reading the Beijing News Daily last week, and there is a report of all the hospitals now. They all in a rush to install DeepSeek for all the major hospitals. So when the doctor diagnoses patient, you have your data, and then DeepSeek will run all the files of you, and then they come up with some kind of an AI diagnosis. That would be a huge reference for the doctor's diagnosis, and that's really good. No wonder I was also in the Beijing Union Hospital last week, and again they take all my data and ask a lot of questions. So interesting to see that happen. Those is a new productive force. Of course, on top of that, if hospital is added by AI, if auto industry is aided by AI, and then if education is aided by AI. Even my kids now, when they do the different things, they always check with AI now. So it's an enormous transformation going on, and I think has huge impact for the years to come. So, and China, of course, is the largest AI talent produced country anyway. Every year, out of the 6 million, out of the 30 million college graduates, half of them are STEM related. So you can see how many engineers China produce to do that. And then even in the US, 30-40% of AI talents are coming from China. So I see this government emphasize new quality productive forces, AI, digital economy, quantum computing, and EV, green power transition, batteries, and of course many new things going on. That's going to add a new momentum in China. And also I see what happened in this Hangzhou. I mean, I recently read the news. In Hangzhou, there's a piece of land where real estate in China is really not doing very well in the last 2 or 3 years. But the auction for this new piece of land in Hangzhou, exceeding the government expectations, actually exceeded the price they set for the bid. And then they found it very interesting. Many cities, when they bid a piece of land, is normally below the bid price. But this one is exceeding. The reason for that is because there's a 6 AI company located in Hangzhou, and then the land is bidding is really close to one of those AI companies. So the smart real estate knows that, real estate developer knows that there's going to be a boom time to come for those AI revenue. It reminds me of internet boom, 20, 25, 30 years ago. When Charles John comes back, there's a rush of returnees coming back, all start business. So if China produces 30-40% of AI talent for US and many more other countries, if those people see there's an opportunity for Mr. Liang, hasn't been to any countries but just homegrown, a graduate from Zhejiang University, come up with a DeepSeek that has tumbled the Wall Street high-tech companies, chips makers for trillions of dollars, wiped out because of this new economic model, open model. It's enormous impact. So I'm sure that many people will come back to really start the second wave of startups. I'm not saying internet, but now AI startups now. So you can see with the solid talent pool that China has, those new quality productive forces is going to be making huge progress, and coupled with the green power transition and many more. So I think this is really interesting to have. So there is also an issue of embodied intelligence has been incorporated into the government work report, become a hot topic also, like humanoid robots are becoming a key carrier of embodied intelligence, and using an evolution from mechanical shells to digital life. So there's many new terms being invented. It's difficult to catch up. And also again on foreign investment, of course, the emphasis again, all the manufacturing are open now. Welcome all. There's no restriction whatsoever for foreign manufacturing in China. The government work report also proposed stabilizing foreign trade development and outlines the specific measures such as strengthening policies to stabilize foreign trade, cultivating new growth areas such as green trade and the digital trade. Again, digital trade is also booming. I'm glad that the U.S. government is not canceling this parceling business. I mean, millions of parceling, digital trade is going on as well, and supporting qualified regions in developing new offshore trade. So interesting, this new offshore trade is mentioned for the first time. So the reason for that, my guess is that because of the trade war, because of the tariff war and high fence, small yard and things like that, it was actually pushed the Chinese company going global ahead of schedule. I met many business people, they are not planned actually to go global, but because now they have to, because of tariff war, trade war, they have to really map out their global strategy ahead of a schedule. So they have to, don't put eggs in one basket and then they go many places now. So this new offshore trade mainly refers to the transaction between Chinese residents and the non-residents when the trade goods do not enter or exit China customer territory or are not included in the Chinese customer statistics. So again, if a Chinese company invests in Vietnam or Indonesia or Middle East, that order may come to China, but then the calculation, the delivering and all the things that happen outside China may not be counted in the Chinese numbers, but then the benefit probably Chinese company will have it. So you see actually China's trade with global is even bigger if this new offshore trade is really become bigger and bigger. So that's really a very interesting thing that they mention about these two sections. And so this actually includes, but it's not limited to offshore re-exports, global procurement, overseas commissioned processing, and overseas purchase for contracted projects. So you can see this interesting new offshore trade is happening now, whether it's friendly shore, near shore, or whatever shore. This is really new offshore is really happening. That's a new term that mentioned at these two sections. So why it is new? I mean, compared with the traditional cross-border import and export trade, new offshore trade achieved this separation of capital flow, order flow, and goods flow. So, for example, a domestic enterprise may take an overseas order, but the goods do not pass through Chinese customs. Instead, they are delivered directly from overseas supplier to overseas customer. So I think this thing has been a new phenomenon and developed so fast. It's because of this trade war and tariff war. I think that China's new offshore trade is still in its early stage of development and exploration, but it is growing rapidly. You can really see that with significant regional progress. So many actually free trade zones are actively exploited and forming distinctive development models such as offshore exporting in Shanghai and overseas commissioned process in Suzhou. So I think Chinese government has realized this could be also another opportunity to expand overseas business. So regions favorable conditions in developing new offshore typically have following characteristics. First, they have developed economies and high levels of openness. And second, any benefit from policy advantages such as a free trade zone and comprehensive bond zones, and also they possess a well-developed financial service system and strong technology innovation capabilities. So places like Shanghai, Guangdong, Zhejiang, Beijing are well suited for developing new offshore business. So that's just one example of what's coming out of these two sections. Finally, maybe I would like to say is that I'm thinking now this coming back to this global macro economy, President Trump is pursuing a more economic warfare, which is also understandable. He's trying to make America and make America great again because American business does suffer. But I think fundamentally one of the problems a business have in the U.S. is that U.S. business is everywhere, but they are not really doing enough to repatriate the profit back to U.S. because that's why OECD and G20 and about 100 countries agreed to implement this global minimum tax, global corporate minimum tax. But I think Trump may not be trying to do that again. But I think it's probably important that we have to level all that, and so that China would not be blamed for every year. Because if the company repatriate profit enough, the government would have enough sources to compensate those workers or people who lose in this globalization process. So that's nothing. I think that is really something we have to pay attention to. But again, this new trade approach that I think Trump has a much larger agenda this term. The first term is really aimed at China, but now second term he's really aimed at the whole world now. He wants to address. He was basically saying at State of the Union speech last week, he said the whole world is rip U.S. off. He's ripping U.S. off. So he's really, again, trying to, balancing every country he thinks is not equally traded with U.S. So I think in that sense, China and U.S. actually, I think the trade war doesn't work with China. China actually has, my personal opinion is that China is already getting used to this. You add a 10%, you add another 10%, it won't really affect China too much because China is also quite mild, I would say reserved, constrained in responding. For example, Trump added 10%, 20% taxes on all categories of products from China. China added a 10 or 15% only on 80 product category the first time, and then another probably 10, 15, 20 product on the second, and not more than 100, I would say. So it's probably still quite reserved responding. But again, even China actually did that last time. I was totally surprised to see that since his first trade war, Trump 1.0, China-U.S. trade in the last 6-7 years has gone up almost 20%. So, but on the other hand, U.S. trade accounts now about 10-11% of China total trade now. Used to count about 20%, 15%. Now it's 10%. Whereas China's trade with U.S. has increased almost 20% with this high tariff over the last 5-6 years. So you can see China is really getting used to and be well prepared by any other countries in the world probably. So I would say this kind of policy in the end may hurt the U.S. because that's the consumer of the U.S. who is paying the bill and really get that hurt. And also China is now become the largest trading nation with 150 countries now. Used to say 120 countries, 140 countries, now 150 countries. And also again, China is ASEAN become the largest trading part of China. And then, Vietnam is the number 4 trading part of China. So you can see how big the neighboring countries are trading now with China. So I can understand why Trump now wants to consolidate North America. I mean, he's talking about, make Canada the 51st state of U.S., Greenland become, part of the U.S. I just had a Danish former foreign minister in my office. I had a dialogue with him last week. He was saying, oh, okay. I mean, he said this is not new. While during Trump's first term, Pompeo and him, his counterpart, they had many exchanges about U.S. purchasing Greenland. But he said that he will leave that to the Greenlanders to decide. So that seems to open the door, and I'm sure Trump wants to, U.S. wants to buy out Greenland, and then Trump also said if Canada become part of the U.S., the Canadian will pay only half of the tax. So I don't know that's going to happen. It's probably his wishful thinking. But again, his disruption is certainly very big now, and the whole world has to prepare. So in that sense, I think China at this moment had this two sections. It really gives some stabilizing effect for the world, and also it was significantly improving relations with China, European countries, China, Latin American countries, Gulf countries, African. So while U.S. is raising tariff, 25% or whatever, for the whole world, China is reducing tariff for 43 least developing countries to 0 coming to China. So one is the raising high tariff, one is reducing. I hope China could exempt more tariff with all developing countries. And China is unilaterally gave 59 countries passing China 240 hours, about 10 days or some 10, 15 days of visa free. And it's no longer seek reciprocal. And then they gave the free 1 month visa for 20, 30, 40 countries already. Most of the European countries, plus Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and many more. So I think, again, these two sections reinforcing Chinese openness. China wants to continue to open, welcome foreign investment, continue to be a stabilizer of the world economy. So I think that's probably my understanding and my takes for these two sections. I'm not an expert on the two sections, but I would like to have some exchanges and dialogues with all the friends here. So I'll stop here, and I've been talking 35, 40 minutes. I think I leave enough time for discussion. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Yes, thank you very much for talking 35 minutes. Now it's time for the Q&A session. Please, I think you just raise your hand, we give you the microphone and you ask a question, and then we can continue this dialogue. Ah, perfect. It is amazing.
Thank you, Professor Wang, for the sharing. And I have 2 questions, and I would like to get your view. First is for 2025, this year, China continue its GDP target of 5%. So in the last year, we know the export contribute a lot to the 5% GDP result. And domestic demand is continue to be weak. So for 2025, people are expecting a weaker export, while the domestic demand is still challenging. So I'd like to get your view about how realistic the 5% GDP target is. And we also noticed that they use word around 5%. Well, that just gives them some room to say, at the end they can achieve their target without exactly hitting the 5%. The second question is you mentioned the faster growing of the digital economy, which is very important. On the other hand, the Chinese government has been strengthening its data regulation, focusing on personal and important data. So, which is a challenge for multinational company operating in China. So, I would like to get your view about the direction of the regulation. On one hand, they want to, protect the data and as an asset or a factor of development. On the other hand, they want to create a more business friendly environment to attract foreign investment. So, what your view about the future direction on that?
Okay, good question. Thank you. And so regarding the first question about they target the GDP for 2025 5%, which is I think is more or less realistic. Even 4.5, I think would be still significant enough. So I think the China now, it's the good thing about China. I think it's the continuity is there. 1 5-year plan, the 5-year plan, and then there's nobody rocking the boat. The chain of command is so strong, so effective, basically. And then you have 70% of a global speed train networks in China. You have 2.5 million 5G station in China, whereas 4.5, sorry, 4.5 million 5G station in China, which means well connected everywhere. And then for the whole Europe, for the whole EU, is only 400,000 5G, so it's 10 times more. And then you have out of the 10 largest container ports, 7 of them are in China. And then plus every year there's a 13 million fresh graduates labor freshly supplied. So this time the government said they're going to create 12 million new jobs. So you can see China is well sorted it out. The synergies there. There's no really too much waste there. And everybody have a 1.1 digital smartphone users. So everybody like a small ERP on their hand, efficiency, the communication cost and everything is so effective. So I think those will make up some of this high quality means business rather than the old days, high speed, but then at very costly environmental everything. So I think that, but also there's low-hanging fruit there too, for generating growth. Of course, AI become now a new phenomenon, but what I see is also opportunity there is that in addition to export, the service sector. I mean, China, all the developed countries are 80% of the GDP. China probably only 50%, not even 55. So from 50 to 80, there's a 30% gap between China and developed world. And then there's another room, health sector, education, service, many financial, many areas. So there's still room to go. I think one of the gold mine China hasn't really done, hasn't done much about is 300 million migrant workers. They are in the city. Half of them must have already security or regular jobs, but they still have to go back to the rural area. And then you see 9 billion people travel around during the Chinese New Year, which is inhuman sometimes. It's too much travel. Husband, wives, and children are separate. So one of the things I think, I found that every 10 years in the past 45 years, China has a big revolutionary policy. For example, in the 80s, they contract land to the farmers, and then China become a economy of abundancy from economy of shortage. And then in the 90s, Chinese government said, let's privatize all the apartments for the city resident. That created the 400 million middle class. And in the year 2000, that decade, China joined WTO, with a few dozen monopolized SOEs. Now 6 billion company can do foreign trade, and China become the largest trading nation. So I think this 10, 15 years, we need some revolution policy like that. So I think these 300 million migrant workers, particularly their household land in the rural area, if that can be commercialized, if they have some ownership, if they can transact, would help these 300 million migrant workers to buy the apartment secondhand in the cities. That could support China real estate for another 10, 20 years. So this is just one proposal. But I think, government has many tools in the box. If time comes, I'm sure those policies they would think. But in general, I would just think of this kind of a synergy I just talking about, with all the efficiency, with all the talents, with all the governance stability, the chain of command. And also the government is much cleaner now than the old days. So I would say China still can, if there's no war, basically, China will keep that. So the second question regarding the digital data and also, I think absolutely, there's a concept, transition change in the mind. People used to say, okay, let's hide the data. That it's a secret. It's your private. But now, people realize data is the 21st century petroleum. You only let it flow, you can make wealth. So I think the government is in that changing, mode right now. Actually, I chaired a study when I was at the Beijing CPPCC committee. Actually, we did actually a study for the two Zoom, Liang Qu Jianshi in Beijing. We actually matched that to CPTPPCC. CPTPP. So we encourage China to join that, and we actually want to see more data flow, more less regulated, and then. So I think the government has relaxing somewhat the policy now, but can be even more relaxing. We actually gathered the 25 biggest company in China, and at CCG we invited the Cybersecurity Central Office, Minister of Commerce, NDRC, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, everybody, to talk about, why can't we change some of those laws and regulations? And then those are well received. So I think there's a possibility we can make some more changes there.
Okay, over there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wang, for your sharing and for hosting us in this beautiful building. It seems that much of the policy focus continues to be on manufacturing, and we know the risks and the dependencies that come with an export-led economy. We're seeing now with tariffs, for example. And yet, when we look at the future, most of the growth will not come from manufacturing, most likely. It will come from the exchange of intangible goods. So whether we're talking about data or whether we're talking about intelligence or other forms of non-tangibles which are not subject to tariffs of this kind of liability. So why is it, do you think, that at least from the government messaging, there isn't so much of an emphasis on strengthening that kind of economy that is local and consumption driven as opposed to export driven?
Well, I think the export, I think government policy doesn't have to emphasize is already there's a market supply demand. There's the global supply. For example, I remember during the COVID, I mean, China's export hit another record high because the global suddenly found they need China to supply all those stuff. And actually, for these first 2 months, the China export import has also hit another historic record higher now. I just watched the Central Television News the other day, and. But I think, the other thing is really happening, like tourism. China is now suddenly expanding tourism. Tourism in normally counts about 10% of GDP. So that's probably the service sector. I think that China can do more, encourage more foreign tourism. That's why China relaxed the visas for so many countries now. I think, as I said, the service sector is still quite a gap between China and developed countries, and China could do more on that. So I think so it will gradually be a more balanced economy, and of course there's new industries like EVs, solar panel batteries, and related industry enormously, and now with this AI, I was totally surprised now, and then you also see. New entertainment business like this Nerza, got how many heated cinema box on a record now. So which means so many people are in different business. That movie, I was told, there's several hundred companies supported that to make it happen. So you can see these new industries coming, and Wukong, of course, another thing, and. So I think China is upgrading, in terms of service sector and digital economy and AI. So now, after 1 year of government talking about new quality productive forces, I think this time, at least for me, I had a better understanding what I mean by new quality productive forces. Doesn't mean old manufacturing. That is still pretty strong. But I think there's new things that are coming up, including the tourism, education, healthcare. 300 million people in China is above 60 years old. China is aging now. So there's a huge industry associated with that, seniors' homes, healthcare, home services. And so I would say if China is keeping stable, as long as it's stable, no unrest, no war, this momentum will continue, yeah.
Yes, I had a question. You put an emphasis on AI. Can you maybe tell us more? Do you know what domain will be very important for China about AI and in which ways they will execute it?
No, I think the government actually. So this is interesting. For example, I would say those are the byproduct of the containment of the U.S. People, China probably in the past didn't think about using AI, but then it was sanctioned by the U.S. and then China said, okay, I'll have to do it. Whether it's chips, it's interesting to see when Secretary Raimondo was in China, Huawei unveiled its 5G phone, and when President Trump was inaugural speech, DeepSeek comes out. So it was really I don't think it's a coincidence, but I think it was forced by the U.S. to do it by itself. So in that sense, not really productive, because otherwise, I think the U.S. chip company lose billions, if not trillions, business to China, and it's forced China to be more self-innovative. What I see AI happening is that AI is, as I said, is for example, there's only 1 month now, 1 month and a half after DeepSeek come out. All the Beijing hospitals are starting to build up their AI structures so they understand by using AI, they can do better diagnosis, raise efficiency, accuracy, and save lives. So that is applied. But then if you use that in your auto driving, again, something could help. I see the biggest impact is also in the education also. So this new generation of kids is using AI as a tool to assist them. It will certainly be more effective for the kids in other developing countries with no AI tool. You will see totally different generation brought up with AI and without AI. So that is having huge impact. And then if everybody using, but China used to say Internet plus, industry Internet plus, 互联网加, right? Now it's AI plus. So I see if that is used in every factory, every restaurant, every shops, every retailing, every internet, every digital, it will greatly increase the efficiency. And even for a think tank, we found out we don't need a lot of preparation. We just tell DeepSeek to summarize something, they will quickly summarize. So if you try the 两会, so give me a summary of 2 sections, better than what I'm talking here today, with DeepSeek. So that thing happened very fast now. I think we're getting, for example, I think internet has led us for 20 years. Now maybe AI will lead us for another 20 years. So this is happening now. So I think it has a wide applications.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights, your first-hand experience from the Chinese legislative process. Of course, you emphasized stability, China as a beacon of stability in this world of uncertainty. We can also see the stability of the political system and all. But my question would be, what is the biggest change that you have seen if you compare this year's Lianghui to last year's? Where is the biggest policy change? And maybe a second question also regarding the property crisis. In that respect, of course, stability is not a good thing to have. We would like to see measures to solve this crisis. What do you see coming out of this parliamentary session that gives you hope that this crisis will soon be resolved?
Yeah, no, I think your question is a good question. And what I think what I see this year's 两会 and different than the previous one is I see more confidence building. I think confidence probably is the gold mind, golden mind that you can't afford not to have, because for the previous one, I think we just get out of COVID. There's a lingering memories. There's people still recovering. The confidence is not there. But this year, it's totally different. You can see, for example, domestic travel has already fully recovered, pre-2019 level. Even more now, actually. And then international traveler after visa relaxation also coming more, already reached the 2019 level. And so I think the biggest good news is the top leaders, met all the private entrepreneurs that people are saying, the private sector doesn't have a confidence. But now you talk to the private sector, they are all geared up to do things now. So that's a good thing about China, is the chain of command, if it's clear. I think what President Xi said at that conference, he said, okay, the private sector's position in China is not set by the government. It's going to be set by the law. It's legalized. They are part of the China business. So I think this hybrid, this is very unique. You got private sector generating over half of the tax revenue, 60% of innovation, 70% of science development, 80% of employment. It's enormous help. And the SOE counts about 20% of GDP, but then they are in a key sector stabilizing the economy. And then you have a multinational employ 50 million people, which counts another 10-15% of Chinese GDP, or even 20%. So you got this hybrid economy in China you never see anywhere in the world. It's very, very well stable structure. This trilateral structure of Chinese economy. So talking about, so that's why I see the confidence is much more stronger this year than any previous 2-3 years after COVID. So that's my biggest takeaway, because, but also I think China felt quite a bit relief now. China is not the only target of US. you got so many countries as a target. So that will make US busy for a while before they target China. I was told, maybe Trump may come again. I see a Wall Street report. We hope he's coming and we can talk. And certainly, I agree with President Trump that if U.S. and China works together, nothing in the world we cannot resolve. So absolutely. So I'm glad he has such a good understanding now. We should really work together. As far as the real estate is concerned, I think China is still a big populous country. As I said, 300 million migrant workers doesn't really stay in the city. They just rented a shabby apartment somewhere in the suburb, and then they keep a big house in the city, in a rural area vacant. Huge waste on both sides. So I hope the government someday would solve that. Let the farmers, if they already have a life in the city, sell their household land in the rural area, get the first capital to start up their business in the city. So that will sustain China real estate for another 10-15 years. Because you think about housing 300 million migrant residents in the Chinese 260 cities, it's going to take another 10-15 years to do that. And now China only every year is urbanizing 20 million, something like that. But we could add more. So I would think those are the other things that if the confidence is back, consumption is back, business confidence is back, and then all those good factors will contribute to the more people's confidence to buy real estate. So that will at least stabilize. I would not expect another hike in the real estate, but I really expect in stabilizing that is happening, I would say.
Thank you for sharing. So I'm from Chong Kong Graduate School of Business. Many of our students or alumni are from the private sector. So my question is more concerned about this. As you just mentioned, this maybe like this time there is more confidence for the private sector. What I want to know is like before the 2 sessions, there is a special seminar for the private sector. We can see like Xiaomi, Lei Jun was there, and the leader of the founder of DeepSeek, or many other big, small, medium, or micro private sectors leaders were there. And in the government report, there are also a special sector mentioning about a special part mentioning about the private sector. I wonder whether this is a sign saying that the government will have more supportive or support for this sector, either the environment or policies. Because we heard a lot of or feedback or opinion from our alumni saying, we have some troubles, or we had some situations with the local government. We want to produce more, or we want to do more trade, but there is some barriers, visible or invisible. So yeah, like my question is whether there will be more supportive policies in the future. Thank you.
No, I think absolutely. I think that one of the things they talk about at these 2 sections is they're going to issue very soon the new law protecting the private enterprises, or the law of 民营企业促进法, something like that. So if that is become a law, that you have a legal position in China, so So I think that's a further assurance of this position of the private sectors. But what I see is China is really, that's why, being a Chinese, you understand why they said, let's maintain the authority of the central government, let's maintain the authority of a central leadership. That is precisely because once the central government, the central leadership say, look, we are seeing those private sectors, we have to do something for them. Then you can be assured of from level down, all the apparatus are all coming to pay attention. And I'm glad this has happened before the two sections. And that become a new turning point of all the government. And then the bank are bold enough to give loans to the private sectors. Everybody's have no worry about private. And then also the policy will come up to support private sector. So I already heard some people saying they feel much better now. So of course it's not going to change overnight. I think it's going to still take some time. But at least people who refuse to, protect the private sector, or really, or people who finding troubles for private sector, have to behave now. So I'm thinking, this really gives a good encouragement for what happened. For example, I know that recently there's many private sector businessmen gathering. Even Jack Ma's Lakefront University or school is also recently had an event. So I'm pretty sure it certainly helps for building up their confidence. That's what I travel around the world. People are always saying, whether your private sector is coming back or not, I will see Jack Ma. If someday he comes out, your private sector is back. Now it's time coming to. It's really coming back. So that's what I'm saying.
I have a sharper question following this question, because we come from MNCs, yes, and we all know that SOE are the government's eye in boosting this economy, and in government's eye, the priority order will be SOEs, private sector, and MNC. So do you think this order will ever change? And do you think MNCs and private sector will ever be equal with SOEs? Thank you.
Well, I think because of the political system in China, because of the government in China, you remember during the COVID, when Wuhan, COVID broke out, there was a 40,000 SOE hospital parachuted there. When Winshan earthquake happened, you got all the SOE, all the provincial municipalities, twinning arrangement. So I think it makes sense for China to maintain 20% of SOE in GDP share, is because when there's a crisis, when there's a trouble, I mean, SOE can really follow the orders of the government. Because whereas in the U.S. or Western countries, the government doesn't really have too many companies to. It's the opposite. President Trump listened to the private sector of Elon Musk. So I think it probably, but again, I think it's equal. I always say multinational MNC are private sector. They are legally registered in China. They hire Chinese staff. They pay Chinese tax. They are Chinese companies. So I would really call for abolish the identity of different, our private SOE or MSC. It's all Chinese company, period. It's the same. We always say that. We publish a blue report about Chinese company globalizing process every year. So I think, if there's any policy issues, we are happy to assist our multinationals to talk to the government, to different department ministries. So we do a lot of things like that to make policy breakthrough for our private sectors. I think, we always say multinationals are Chinese companies, should be respected, treated, and respect as the same as other company. So I think when Chinese government say private sectors, multinational private sector. So but also I'm sure the government also meet multinational heads from time to time. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to work together. No. I think President Trump wants to meet President Xi always. I mean, he invited President Xi to attend his inaugural ceremony. Vice President Han Zheng went there. I don't think it was a good idea to have a President Xi crowded in that Congress building, probably. But anyway, China did send a very senior government official there, and then he said he wants to visit China in the first 100 days. China probably, have a Chinese New Year and all those things. Is not really that quick, but it's quite possible he's happening this year. And if the war is not coming this year, he will certainly come for the APEC summit in China next year. So, but I think, but for Trump, he has a good days. He probably has 30 months of a good mandate, because after 30 months and then the next election coming, he'll become a lame duck. And even during the midterm, I'm sure the Republican will control one of the houses. So he has really this 28, 30 months of golden time to do things. And then the reason he will come to China is because he's trying to get China help for this Ukraine crisis, Ukraine war. And so I think China can play a lot of role there, and even send in the Chinese peacekeeping force for Ukraine. Because Russia said, welcome China's peacekeeping force. And then U.S. already said, we don't want U.S. troops in Ukraine. It has to be European troops and non-European troops. So non-European troops could be China, India, Brazil, other countries. But I think, it has to be a UN peacekeeping force. And China is the largest peacekeeping force sending country among the P5 member countries. So I think, he needs China on Russian-Ukraine conflict, on Middle East conflict, on North Korea. And of course, he wants TikTok, So there's many things. I think, and also maybe we can have a new communique on Taiwan, because he's less ideological. The reason Taiwan gets so much attention is because of this binary discourse going on, autocracy versus democracy, but West versus the rest, West versus China. But now that binary is broken now. You see, I was at the AI summit in Paris last month, and then China, India, EU, France all signed with the AI declaration, whereas US, UK refused to sign. So it's no longer West as a whole. And then you see the Russia and the US voted together recently at the UN Security Council. You never imagined of. So I think Trump is less ideological, and then this autocracy, democracy, binary view will be talking less, and then Taiwan cannot be using excuse, we are the democracy, so you have to protect us. So the new paradigm shift is that the war is really measured on the effectiveness of how you govern your country, how you making things happen. I was really interested to see President Trump had a news conference after the Washington Reagan Airport air crashes, and he has Vice President J.D. Vance there. He has Transport Secretary. He has the Aviation Director. They all speak under the leadership of Trump, under the wise leadership of Trump. I see this looks like a Chinese news conference. and even Zelensky actually a few days ago issued a Twitter saying, "Oh, we apologize, regret. We are coming back. We should talk again because of the wise leadership of Trump." So they are learning quickly, So I think he will come back. He needs China, and China, of course, like to talk with U.S. to work together.
Thank you very much for your words, Mr. Wang. My question is on foreign investment. Can you say something on the topic of Chinese investment in developed countries such as the Benelux or Switzerland? Will the government encourage or foster such investments? And what could developed countries like Switzerland or Benelux do to facilitate such investments?
Absolutely. I think huge opportunities. I was in Europe just February last month. I was in Munich as well. I was in Belgium, Brussels also this year. And there's a huge interest of Chinese investment there. I had a Pascal Lamy come into my office last November, and we had a roundtable. He's the former WTO DJ, and we talk about, von der Leyen is raising high tariff of Chinese company EV goes to Europe, but why can't we invite Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, and have a lot of JV, have a lot of experience, and then we can all invest back into Europe. China not only invest in Hungary, and maybe some in Spain, but because of this negative environment that Chinese company has in European countries, they invest. There's money actually goes to Hungary now, but it could go to, Brussels. It could go to, many other Western European countries. So I think, it's high time we revive this comprehensive agreement between China and the EU. And that's also another policy President Trump has, that China can help U.S. President Trump said, if a Chinese company invest in Mexico, I'm going to have a 200% tariff. But if you come to the U.S., I'll give you 15%. It's like China now. It's U.S. attract foreign capital investment. So Chinese company will be happy to go to U.S. to invest, like Fuyao Glass invest over $1 billion in the U.S. It's doing extremely well. So I'm sure Chinese company wants to invest in Europe and U.S. too. So that's what I mean by this NPC, CPPC section, this new offshore business, right? So I think there's quite a possibility. So I think there's a huge interest of Chinese company investing. It just the policy of EU or other countries saying, oh, you are a rivalry. Oh, I'm going to add 40% tariff on you and things like that. I had a group of UK businessmen coming. I said, UK is doing okay. They keep 10%. They are not raising to 40% for the EV cars from China. So if you go to London, all the Ubers are made in China. Very, very, very clean and very, very efficient.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Thank you for sharing. Very informative. And just now you mentioned about the consumption. So my first question is about the consumption. That for this year, the government working report has put the consumption on the top agenda. So do you think? But we know that all in recent years, the central government and also local government, they have released quite a lot of initiatives to stimulate that. So my question is that what do you think the recently or in this year the policy or initiative on the consumption, how to stimulate the consumption, will comes out, considering the quite challenging employment in reality? So that is my first question. And my second question is about this year, 2025 is very important, and the government is reviewing the 14th five-year plan, and some of the, I think most of the ministries, they are going to formulate the 15th five-year plan. So any information you can share with us, for example, like anything new on that? Thank you so much.
Very well with it, because I agree with you. Everybody talk about consumption, about stability in China. Everybody thinks it's very important, but out what we come with Chinese people and they look and it's important for them. No meaningful policies came out for them to really help them. Okay, you have this Zhonghua Butier, this Chinese consumption, but it just give you a little money if you consume, right? But not so many people use it and they don't want to spend their money. So is there a long-term reform to help to give confidence on the consumer that it's okay to spend your saving again, rather than to say?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I really think that first of all, you have to really restore your confidence. That's probably before you're doing anything. If you worry about future, if you worry about your retirement, you're going to hold the wallet tied to your chest. You don't want to spend any money. But now, I see some confidence is back. So that's going to help. So that's number one. Number two is that I think Chinese government is also put more stimulus packages. Like they announced 300 billion, some kind of government bond to do something, and there could be more. So I think the debt ratio is still tolerant some more stimulus packages. That's number two. Number three, I really see this international environment could be improved under the Trump for the next 2-3 years. So if there is less, China is the only target, and now China become one of the target. That probably is better. More tourism, more investment, more business, more import export are going to help. So, and the number four is that also I see this new AI thing can raise productivity and create wealth and generate the income. So all those things combined, I would say, at least we stabilize that. Probably we cannot go to the high time we had 10 years ago, booming every day, and now, but we're not like Japan, but we are probably getting into normalcy. This is a new normal we probably get used to. You can't expect 10%, 8%, 7%. If they can manage 4, 5%, I think with this kind of a magnitude of the country, like every year you add another new Australia GDP to your country, it's still enormous. So also there's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of redundancy to be really make up, and I think so. Efficiency and effectiveness and the confidence and more better international environment. I would say China would still maintain relatively stable for the next few years. Five years plan, they already said new, they're not saying new quality productive forces, but really AI, information, digital, new green power transition. All those things I think will be the emphasized. The one of the thing I really think also the other buzzword for this year 2 sections is science and technology. So that is really they are trying to catch up now. So and that is byproduct of these U.S. sanctions. Actually pushed China to say, okay, if we are falling behind, we're at the mercy of others. Why can't we, do a heavy investment on that? So I think 15th five-year plan will be quite a lot on those areas.
Thank you very much for the discussion and the presentation. I have a question on the level of international affairs. What do you think sees China's role for BRICS and SCO for the topics of development and stabilization, international order, and topics like that? Do you see something in these 2 sessions which we can anticipate what's coming next 5 years?
No, you can be assured of. I think China is emerging as a leader of BRICS countries now. At least economically. And so you can see, I was even in the Munich Security Conference this year. They have a record number of Global South countries make up 30% as a participant. And so you can see BRICS countries' GDP is already larger than G7, and then China actually trades more. 70% trading was with non-G7 countries. US is only 10%, maybe another 20% from EU everywhere. So you can see China become magnetic for all the Global South countries. As a matter of fact, China, as I said, lifted 43 countries, 0 tariff coming to China. China's trade with Africa was increased. Again, of course, China with Asia, ASEAN, Vietnam, and all the rest. So I think this new mechanism of BRICS. I just had this morning this afternoon before you came, I had the minister from Latvia, together with a Latvia ambassador, come to my office, talk about UN, talk about future of global system. So I was thinking, maybe we're probably going to see a more equilibrium happening now. For example, you talk about G20, 10 10 of the G20 countries are developed Western countries, and then 10 are BRICS countries. So global South countries. So I see there's a new equilibrium as Munich Securities Conference was talked about. And China is certainly leading this half of the global balance now, economically at least. So I would say for the next few years is that, of course, how can we really coexist peacefully with this new mega situation that President Trump is pushing. And I see he's very concentrated on his own sphere of North America, Americas, Greenland, Canada, Mexico. If he's doing that, then he should really not interfere China peaceful unification with Taiwan, right? I mean, so I think in the future, even with the Ukraine crisis, I'm sure, President Trump made a proposal asking Europeans to put troops there, but Putin already, his official already said, we'd like to see Chinese troops. So in the future, if NATO and BRICS guarantee the security of the Ukraine war, it's probably much safer than the Minsk agreement. So I see the BRICS will play more and more active role in stabilizing the war, even though it's not really organized at the moment. But eventually, you will become a more organized, more accommodating forces in the world. And just like Belt and Road countries, 150 countries in the Belt and Road countries, China now trades more with Belt and Road countries already now. It's over 50% trading are with Belt and Road countries. So I certainly see we probably getting towards a more balanced, more new equilibrium with G7 countries and BRICS countries. Hopefully, they are all big enough, powerful enough, and then they don't have any more frictions. They will coexist peacefully. That is my prediction of the next few years or next decade probably.
Any more questions? Okay, so maybe I just have one last to finish, because you mentioned many times the offshore trade increasing, right? And the offshore trade increasing, in your view, is the Chinese company that do business in Vietnam, and the Chinese statistic understand how much they produce in Vietnam and so on, and what is their total revenue and the contribution to this country GDP, and then what do they make the use of this statistic for them? And is it if the goal, for example, to understand how much tax they could add on them when they come back to China and so on, to reallocate a little bit this money to contribute to the global welfare of the Chinese society?
No. What I'm saying is that the Chinese government doesn't know what's profit, what revenue they made overseas. What I'm saying is that in addition to the import-export statistics China announces every year, there is a offshore business statistics that Chinese customer doesn't really take a calculation on that. So which means Chinese companies doing trade is even larger than the government announced the figure. So that means there's more and more Chinese company, mapping out around the world, and then forced to go global ahead of a schedule, and then doing more business now, and but I think eventually Chinese company get stronger, get more profitable, get more investment capability, and then they can invest more in other countries. So that is a new trend, a byproduct of this trade war. So what I'm saying is that China announced its how many trillion of import-export. There could be another big chunk of number they didn't calculate into that, because it's all happened outside China and offshore. So which means this new sector of business is doing well, and it's going to be maybe a new trend. That was what I'm saying. Yeah.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Thank you very much for this very insightful presentation, and also thank you very much to take the time to answer nicely and with the time, all the questions that the participant ask, some of them even difficult questions, very much appreciated, and I think the audience also appreciates the time you took to answer this question. So now we can say that this event is concluded. Thank you very much all for coming today. I hope you gained some new insight. Also, please feel free afterward to discuss, to share, and maybe to have some private conversation on this topic. I wish you all a very good day. And on this word, I think we can see that Chinese is a stable country for the coming years to come.
I just want to add, I want to thank Guillaume and also Sean very well. And also, we love to, also meet more often of you. You represent a really important forces in China, and Chamber are doing extremely well. We hope to do more. And also I have Zhang Wei, our Deputy Secretary General, is here. You can keep touch. And also Dr. Ann Tan, our Deputy Secretary General, also here. So let's keep in touch, and we hope that we continue to have future gathering again, right? I mean, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.